They won't fear your voice. They'll fear your silence. Because silence is the sound of a mind that has already won. Strength doesn't begin in your body. It begins in the unseen, in your thoughts, your reactions, your restraint. The world wants loudness, chaos, proof of confidence. But true power lives in stillness. It's the kind of power that doesn't announce itself. It's felt. Every empire, every king, every strategist who ruled without lifting a sword, they all mastered one thing first: the architecture of their own mind. You see, the weak man trains his body to look strong. The dangerous man trains his mind to be strong. He builds it like a fortress, stone by stone, layer by layer, until nothing outside of him can shake the ground beneath him. His peace is unbreakable. His focus is bulletproof. His emotions obey him. This is not calmness. This is command. Imagine this. You walk into a room and say nothing, but everyone feels your presence. No bravado, no performance, just quiet dominance. That is what happens when your mind is so composed that it unsettles others, when your silence becomes louder than their noise. The truth is, the most intimidating people in history weren't loud. They didn't beg to be understood. They didn't rush to explain. They made the world guess. Because when people can't read you, they fear you. And fear is the purest form of respect. So how do you build that kind of mind? The one that bends the world instead of reacting to it? It begins with one word: detachment. Most people are slaves, not because someone put chains on them, but because they never learned how to stop craving. They crave validation. They crave attention. They crave to be seen, loved, respected, admired. And every craving becomes a string tied to their soul, a string that anyone can pull. When you crave, you become predictable. When you crave, you become controllable. And when you're controllable, you become invisible, not because no one sees you, but because no one respects you. The first step to building the untouchable mind is learning to want nothing. This doesn't mean apathy. It means control. It means that no external situation, no insult, no rejection, no praise moves you off-center. You want nothing. So nothing can be used against you. That's the seed of psychological invincibility. When a person insults you, you don't flinch. When someone withdraws love, you don't chase. When you lose what you wanted, you don't break. Because your peace is not attached to any external thing. This kind of detachment isn't natural, it's trained. You forge it through repetition, through discomfort, through silence. Every time life tries to provoke you, and you refuse to react, you add another layer to your mental armor. Think of it this way: a man who needs nothing controls everything. If you can master the art of emotional independence, you will start to see how deeply enslaved most people truly are. Watch them, their moods change with every message, every glance, every like, every rejection. They are puppets, dancing to strings they cannot see. But you, the man who watches without reacting, you cut those strings one by one. You stop chasing understanding. You stop explaining your intentions. You stop seeking fairness. Instead, you operate from control, from strategy, from presence. And that presence terrifies them. Machiavelli would call this the highest advantage: to appear involved, but remain untouched. To play the game, but never lose yourself inside it. To walk through chaos without being infected by it. That is not just strength, it's supremacy. And here's what's ironic. The moment you stop trying to prove you are powerful, you become powerful. When you stop reacting, they start reacting to you. When you stop chasing, they start seeking your attention. When you stop needing to be seen, the world begins to notice your absence. You create a vacuum, and that vacuum draws power toward you. But understand, Detachment is not distance. It's not cold avoidance. It's control. You can still love, but not need. You can still care, but not cling. You can still engage, but never lose yourself in the engagement. This is how you become rare. And in a world of desperate minds, rarity equals dominance. The truth is, people don't admire those who beg for validation. They admire those who could have it and choose silence instead. Because silence, my friend, is the loudest form of power. When others rush, you remain still. When others speak, you observe. When others compete, you disappear into precision. And slowly, your calm becomes a mirror, reflecting their chaos back to them. They start to panic around you. They feel exposed, small, unsure. And in that moment, you own them. The man who controls his emotions controls the world around him. Because most of the world is emotionally addicted, chasing dopamine, avoiding discomfort, begging for certainty. But the untouchable mind thrives in uncertainty. It welcomes discomfort. It feeds on silence. That's where you begin to rise, not through noise, not through dominance, but through stillness so deep it disturbs those who live on reaction. Because when you stop being readable, you stop being controllable. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. Let them. It means they can no longer manipulate you. So from this moment forward, begin training that silence. Not just the absence of words, but the absence of reaction. Don't respond to every provocation. Don't explain every decision. Don't announce your emotions like a public broadcast. Your thoughts are your fortress. Your composure is your weapon. And every time someone tries to pull you into their storm, stay still. Let them drown in their own noise. Because the one who keeps calm in chaos owns the battlefield. You are not here to impress. You are here to build a mind that terrifies through composure. They'll never fear your anger. They'll fear your indifference. They'll never fear your words. They'll fear your silence. And that silence, that calm, grounded, untouchable presence, will be your declaration of war. They'll test you. They'll poke at your emotions. They'll provoke, insult, praise, and seduce, all to find the switch that makes you react. Because to the manipulative mind, the one who reacts first loses. Understand this: control is never taken from you. You give it away one reaction at a time. Every time you get angry, you hand them the code to your emotions. Every time you explain yourself, you hand them the map to your insecurities. Every time you defend your worth, you reveal the cracks in your armor. The untouchable mind does none of that. It observes. It calculates. It remains calm, silent, unreadable. And that silence drives manipulators insane. Machiavelli once said, "The one who controls appearances controls reality." In modern words, this means if they can't read you, they can't rule you. You see, emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about mastering expression. It's not about becoming numb. It's about becoming invisible emotionally. Because when people can no longer tell what you feel, they lose their grip. They'll throw anger at you, waiting for you to explode. They'll use guilt, waiting for you to fold. They'll try silence, waiting for you to chase. But you'll do nothing. And that nothing will terrify them. Most people are emotionally predictable. They respond the same way every time: anger, sadness, defensiveness, chasing. They live as open circuits, every emotion visible, every weakness exploitable. You must be the opposite: a closed circuit, a sealed vault, a storm inside, but absolute calm on the surface. They must never know if you are hurt, angry, or indifferent, because uncertainty is the greatest psychological weapon you can wield. When they don't know what you feel, they start to question themselves. They second-guess their words, their actions, their power. They spiral. And while they spiral, you stay composed. That is domination through silence. To master this, you must retrain the mind to pause before reacting. Every emotional trigger is a test of sovereignty. Someone insults you? Pause. Someone betrays you? Pause. Someone flatters you? Pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a gap, and that gap is where power lives. The weak man reacts instantly, pulled by every emotion like a puppet. The strong man waits, calculates, and chooses whether a reaction is even worth the energy. That single moment of pause is the difference between slavery and command. Now, ask yourself, how much of your life has been wasted reacting? How many battles did you lose not because you were wrong, but because you reacted emotionally? They baited you, and you took it. They disrespected you, and you exploded. They ignored you, and you chased. Each reaction gave them power over your peace. No more. From this moment forward, your mind becomes a fortress. Your emotions are not public property. You decide when to express and when to remain silent. Because silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. There's a rule Machiavelli would whisper into your ear if he could. Never let anyone see what moves you. Once they know what angers you, they can control you with rage. Once they know what you love, they can control you with loss. Once they know what you crave, they can control you with promises. So you do the opposite. You show nothing. Smile when they expect outrage. Stay silent when they expect defense. Walk away when they expect argument. Each time you do, you rewire their perception of you from reactive to unreadable, from emotional to strategic. People are addicted to reaction. They feed off your energy, your outrage, your confusion, your need to be understood. But when you no longer feed them, they starve. Your silence becomes punishment. Your calm becomes their mirror. And in that mirror, they confront their own weakness. They realize they can't move you anymore, and that realization breaks them. Because in psychological warfare, the one who starves the other of emotional fuel wins. Understand this truth deeply. When you don't react, you are not losing power. You are reclaiming it. You are teaching people that access to your emotions is earned, not assumed. That your peace is sacred. That your attention is not a gift, it's a privilege. The world respects what it cannot shake. And when you stop reacting to everything, you become a mystery, a question they can't solve, a presence they can't predict. That unpredictability is what makes you dangerous. You will notice something fascinating when you start practicing emotional detachment. People will call you distant, cold, unfeeling. But what they really mean is this: you've stopped being controllable. Their manipulation used to work. Now it doesn't. Their words used to sting. Now they slide off your armor. Their approval used to matter. Now it means nothing. And that nothing, that void, haunts them. Because the moment you stop needing their validation, they start needing yours. That's when the power shifts. But emotional control doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean rejecting the world. It means choosing when and how to engage. You can still show warmth, but intentionally. You can still express, but only when it serves purpose. You can still love, but never at the cost of your self-command. That's the art. To be human, but never hostage to emotion. To feel everything, but reveal nothing. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this law. The one who reacts loses. Stay silent. Stay composed. Let your calm make them uncomfortable. Because true control isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the ability to look into the eyes of chaos and not blink. That's not arrogance. That's discipline. That's sovereignty over self. When you reach that point, when no insult can shake you, no praise can seduce you, no rejection can wound you, you will finally understand what power truly is. It's not in domination. It's not in control over others. It's in control over yourself. And when you master that, the world bends quietly around your will. There's a rare kind of power that doesn't come from status, money, or muscles. It comes from being unreadable. When they can't figure you out, they fear you. When they can't predict your moves, they respect you. When they can't control your emotions, they bow to your silence. This is psychological invisibility, the art of disappearing in plain sight, the ability to exist in the game without ever being played. Most people live like open books, broadcasting every thought, every emotion, every weakness. You can see what they want, what they crave, what they hate. They are predictable. And predictability is death in the psychology of power. Because if they can read you, they can use you. If they can label you, they can contain you. If they can anticipate you, they can destroy you. But when you become unreadable, when your motives are invisible, no one can prepare for you. They start guessing. They start projecting. They start fearing. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He said, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands, for everyone can see, but few can feel." He meant, if they can't see who you are, they can't touch your strategy. That's why psychological invisibility isn't about hiding physically. It's about concealing intent. They'll see your actions, but never your reasons. They'll hear your words, but never know your motives. They'll observe your calm and confuse it for weakness. Let them, because while they're guessing, you're guiding. To practice this, you must destroy the modern addiction to explaining yourself. You don't need to tell them why you're quiet. You don't need to justify your choices. You don't need to correct their assumptions. Every explanation makes you visible. Every justification exposes your mind. Every argument reveals your energy. Let them misunderstand you. It's a shield. The powerful are often called mysterious, not because they hide, but because they reveal only what's useful. You control the narrative by controlling what you give away. Invisibility begins with emotional privacy. Never let your feelings become public property. Don't post every victory. Don't announce every struggle. The more you reveal, the easier it is to categorize you. The modern world feeds on oversharing. It wants to dissect you, to read you, to make you predictable. But power thrives in mystery. When you stop explaining yourself, people will fill the silence with their own interpretations. Some will admire you. Some will fear you. All will wonder about you. And that wondering is influence. You must train your presence to say everything while your words say nothing. When you walk into a room, let your calm speak louder than your mouth. When people talk, listen more than you speak. When they demand answers, give silence that feels like thunder. Because power doesn't need to announce itself. Power radiates from control. The more you speak, the more you risk revealing your thoughts. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. Your goal is to make every sentence feel deliberate, every glance feel calculated. That's how you cultivate aura. Now, let's talk about strategy. How does one build this invisibility? Step 1. Stop being predictable. Change your patterns, the way you respond, the time you reply, the tone you use. Never let people feel like they've figured you out. If they think they can read your next move, change direction. If they expect anger, respond with humor. If they expect silence, surprise them with precision. Keep them mentally off balance. Inconsistency, when intentional, is psychological smoke. They can't hit what they can't define. Step 2. Say less than necessary. Never rush to fill silence. Most people speak to comfort their insecurity. They ramble to seem confident, when in truth, they're leaking information. But you? You let pauses linger. You let others reveal themselves. You let curiosity work in your favor. Because the moment you stop oversharing, you become the mystery they can't solve. And humans fear what they don't understand. Step 3. Be selective with your visibility. You don't need to disappear completely. You only need to control what they see. Appear when your presence matters. Speak when your silence would cost influence. Reveal only enough to maintain interest, never enough to lose power. Even on social media, apply this law. Post rarely, speak rarely, but when you do make it count, people value what is scarce. So make your energy scarce. Make your words scarce. Make you scarce. Because scarcity creates value, and mystery multiplies it. Step 4. Master emotional neutrality. You will be tested. They'll provoke you to read your limits. They'll flatter you to find your weakness. They'll criticize you to see if you bleed. But your reaction must always be the same: calm, centered, detached. You smile faintly. You say little. You walk away when needed. That neutrality disorients people. They expect you to play by emotional rules, but you operate like a mirror. They throw anger, they see themselves. They throw charm, they see themselves. They throw insult, they still see themselves. You show nothing. You reflect everything. That's invisibility. Step 5. Detach from the need to be understood. The need to be understood is the trap that destroys invisibility. The more you seek validation, the more visible you become. The more you try to prove yourself, the more predictable you appear. Let them misunderstand. Let them judge. Let them whisper theories. Their confusion is your camouflage. Because every minute they spend trying to decode you is a minute you remain untouchable. Machiavelli knew that the most feared ruler was the one whose motives no one could read. That's why his advice was simple. Let others think you are capable of everything, but reveal nothing of what you are truly doing. When they can't locate your intentions, they imagine the worst, and that imagination gives you more power than any explanation ever could. You see, invisibility isn't emptiness. It's controlled exposure. It's the art of giving them a reflection so clean, so minimal, that they start projecting their own fears onto you. And those fears become your armor. By now, you understand power doesn't live in being seen. It lives in being felt. The quiet man at the back of the room often commands more attention than the loud one at the front. Because silence invites curiosity. Mystery provokes fascination. And the unreadable mind dominates the visible one. So fade, not from existence, but from comprehension. Let them see you, but never know you. Let them feel you, but never define you. Because once you become invisible in intent, you become invincible in effect. They say power is presence, but that's not entirely true. In reality, power is the ability to withdraw presence and still be felt. There's a law in psychology and strategy that few understand. The less they see you, the more they want you. The more they feel your absence, the more they remember your presence. This is the power of strategic distance. It's not about cutting people off. It's about controlling the frequency of your availability. Because every time you disappear correctly, your value multiplies in their mind. Human nature is simple. We take for granted what's constant. We desire what's rare. We chase what we cannot have. When you're always available, always responding, always there, you become ordinary, predictable, common. And nothing that's common holds power. But the moment you step back, the air changes. They feel your silence. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're doing, who has your attention. And that wondering is the beginning of control. Machiavelli understood this in his dealings with kings and diplomats. He advised rulers to appear rarely before their subjects, for men grow weary of continual sight. He knew that power loses its luster when it's constantly visible. The more often people experience you, the less impact you have. The less often they see you, the more symbolic you become. Think about it. Why are myths more powerful than men? Because they're unseen, unknown, mysterious, and therefore infinite in interpretation. That's what distance creates. It turns you from a person into a presence. In relationships, in business, in influence, you must learn when to vanish. Disappearing is not abandonment. It's positioning. When you pull back, you give people space to feel your absence. And in that space, desire grows. They'll begin to recall your energy. They'll replay your words. They'll construct your image in their mind, and that mental image will often be stronger than your real self ever could be. Distance magnifies memory. It creates longing, and longing is power. But this strategy only works if you are remembered. And to be remembered, you must leave impact before you disappear. When you're present, be entirely present. Speak with purpose. Act with precision. Make your energy felt, then vanish. You want them to feel that shift when you're gone. Like the silence after a storm, like the echo of thunder that lingers even when the sky has cleared. That's how powerful absence feels. There's a second rule to this law. Never explain your disappearance. Silence breeds imagination, and imagination always paints you in greater colors than explanation ever could. When you vanish, they'll invent stories. They'll ask themselves questions. They'll project emotions, curiosity, regret, even fear. All of that gives you invisible leverage, because while they're thinking of you, you're thinking strategically. You've left the arena, but your shadow still competes. Think of power like fire. If you burn too constantly, people get used to your heat. But if you appear, disappear, and reappear with timing, you control the temperature of their attention. This is how powerful leaders, artists, and thinkers throughout history maintained their allure. They didn't give access, they gave glimpses. They appeared rarely, spoke selectively, and vanished deliberately. Their scarcity built their legend. Now understand, there's a difference between strategic absence and emotional avoidance. Strategic absence is intentional. It's planned. It's power in motion. Avoidance, on the other hand, is fear running from responsibility, hiding from truth, escaping discomfort. That's weakness disguised as distance. You disappear not because you're scared, but because you understand energy economics. Your presence is expensive. It should not be given freely. Every moment you offer it, it should create value, curiosity, or respect. If it doesn't, withdraw it. When you start applying this law, people will react in three ways. Some will chase you, some will resent you, and some will mirror your silence hoping you'll break first. But you must remain composed, because the longer you stay silent, the more control shifts in your favor. They'll break before you do. They'll reach before you return. And that's when you reappear, calm, confident, controlled. Your re-entry must feel deliberate, like a king returning to his court, not a beggar asking for entry. Machiavelli would have called this the rhythm of power, presence and absence, appearance and disappearance, like tides that pull and recede. It's not about cutting people off forever. It's about letting absence intensify your presence. It's not about being unreachable. It's about making your reach worth something. When you move like this, people begin to respect your time, guard their words, and crave your attention, because they know it's rare. And here lies the ultimate paradox. When you master absence, your silence speaks louder than your presence ever could. You walk out of a room, and the room still feels you. You stop texting, and the screen still burns with your last words. You step away from a connection and suddenly, they remember every moment they overlooked. That's not magic. That's psychology. That's scarcity in motion. So practice this. Pull back when you feel overly available. Withdraw when your value is being diluted. Let silence do the talking that words can't. You are not meant to be everywhere, all the time. You are meant to appear where it matters and vanish when it doesn't. The weak scream to be noticed. The powerful disappear to be remembered. That's how you build gravity, not by chasing, but by pulling. Not by demanding attention, but by commanding it through absence. Because true power doesn't ask to be seen. It makes its absence impossible to forget. You can't command power if you can't command yourself. And the most dangerous man in any room is the one who feels deeply but shows nothing. Because emotional restraint is not about suppression. It's about possession. It's not about being cold. It's about being in control. Every tyrant, every manipulator, every emotional aggressor feeds on your reaction. Your anger, your confusion, your outburst. When you lose control, you hand over the steering wheel of your reality. They drive, you follow. They decide your state, you obey. That's how people manipulate the strong, by making them emotional. But when your emotions are disciplined, when you remain composed under pressure, the world bends around your stillness. Machiavelli once said, "A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men, and to imitate those who have been supreme. And the supreme ones, the true masters of mind and influence, were never those who roared. They were those who remained calm while others panicked. They were ice in the middle of fire. That calmness isn't natural, it's trained. You must build it like muscle, through discomfort, through confrontation, through moments that beg you to react. Every test of your temper is a training session in disguise. Ask yourself, how many times have you destroyed your position because of a moment of emotion? A text you shouldn't have sent. A word you shouldn't have said. A reaction that revealed too much. Every outburst drains authority. Every display of anger hands someone else your control. The world watches your reactions more than it hears your words. And if you react like everyone else, you'll be treated like everyone else. But when you show restraint, when you smile calmly under provocation, people start to sense something different. They feel uncertainty. They feel respect. They feel fear. Because emotional restraint is a kind of mystery they can't decode. You see, most people's emotions are loud, messy, and public. They spill everything: frustration, envy, insecurity, excitement. They think expression equals strength, but it's the opposite. Expression is exposure. It shows your angles, your cracks, your temperature. It lets people measure your worth, your limits, your triggers. Restraint, on the other hand, creates power through confusion. They don't know what you're feeling, so they imagine the worst. They think you're calm because you're confident. They think you're quiet because you're calculating. They think you're cold because you see further than they do. And whether or not those things are true, the belief alone gives you power. But restraint doesn't mean being robotic. You can still feel everything. You just don't display it impulsively. The Stoics called this apatheia, not the absence of feeling, but mastery of it. You still get angry, but you choose when and how to express it. You still care, but not to the point where caring becomes weakness. Emotional restraint turns your feelings into tools, not weapons against yourself. When you can control your reactions, you can control your outcomes. When you can delay your response, you can dictate the timing of the entire situation. Timing is everything, and timing is born from restraint. There's an old principle: never fight battles of emotion, fight battles of position. When you get emotional, you lose position. You move from strategy to survival. You go from power to reaction. That's how people get manipulated. They get drawn into emotional games and forget the larger war. You must learn to stay calm even when provoked, especially when provoked. Because every provocation is a test. They want to know if you're self-possessed or self-destructive. When you show restraint, you pass that test. When you react, you reveal your limits. In moments of confrontation, learn this sequence. Pause, breathe, observe, choose. Never skip to reaction. The pause separates the weak from the strong. The breath centers your awareness. Observation shows you their intent. And choice turns you into the one in command. This single second of control can prevent a lifetime of regret. Imagine this. Two people are arguing. One is shouting, emotional, shaking with rage. The other stands still face unreadable, eyes locked, breathing steady. Who looks stronger? Who feels in control? Who's feared more? It's always the one who doesn't react. Because the moment you realize you don't owe anyone your reaction, you become sovereign over yourself. Machiavelli's rulers practiced restraint like a ritual. They never made decisions in the heat of emotion. They waited days, weeks, sometimes months, until every feeling had cooled into logic. They understood that emotion is temporary, but the consequences of reacting under it can last forever. So when anger rises, don't respond. When fear grows, don't retreat. When excitement tempts you, don't overextend. Restraint is patience wearing armor. It's your higher mind reminding the lower mind. We move when we choose, not when we're pushed. You will know you've mastered restraint when people start saying, "You're hard to read. You never lose your cool. You don't react like others." Good. That means you're evolving. Because in this world, the loud man burns out fast. The impulsive man gets exposed. The emotional man gets played. But the restrained man? He outlasts them all. He makes fewer mistakes. He commands more respect. And his silence cuts louder than their noise ever could. Understand, this fear doesn't always come from aggression. Sometimes it comes from composure. When you remain calm in chaos, others question their stability. When you don't flinch under pressure, they wonder what you know that they don't. When you don't respond to their provocation, they realize they have no control. And that realization that they can't move you breeds both respect and fear. That's what restraint truly is. The quiet edge of the mind that cuts sharper than anger ever could. You're not meant to be cold. You're meant to be collected. You're not meant to suppress emotion. You're meant to master it. Because the world will keep testing your equilibrium through people, pain, temptation, chaos. And every test is asking the same question. Who owns you? If emotion owns you, they do. If you own emotion, no one ever will. So the next time you feel anger, remember, it's not weakness to stay calm, it's dominance. It's the refusal to hand over your mind. The man who can look into the storm and smile, not because he's numb, but because he knows he cannot be shaken. That man is free. And freedom, when combined with discipline, creates something far more powerful than fear. Respect. At this point, you've built something few men ever touch. A mind that no longer flinches, no longer reacts, no longer bends to noise. You've burned your reactivity. You've starved their control. You've mastered detachment. You've built restraint so strong it makes others doubt their own composure. Now comes the transformation that completes it all. The transition from control to presence. The untouchable mind is not about hiding. It's about existing in such quiet power that your presence becomes felt even when you're gone. When you enter a room, you no longer seek attention. But the atmosphere shifts anyway. The loud ones pause. The insecure ones overcompensate. The wise ones, they sense it. They can't explain it, but they feel it. That calm, that silence, that stillness, that radiates confidence. Not arrogance, certainty. You have nothing to prove anymore. You don't need to defend, explain, or justify. You don't play games, because you are the game, and that terrifies them. You see, most people chase visibility. They think power means being seen, being loud, being celebrated. But true dominance is the opposite. It's invisibility. It's influence without exposure. When your mind reaches this level, you no longer participate in the noise. You watch it. You analyze it. You move when it serves your purpose, not your impulse. Machiavelli would have smiled at this. He wrote that the wise man does at once what the fool does at last. And the fool, my friend, is always reactive, always visible, always predictable. But the wise man moves like shadow, speaks like prophecy, disappears and still commands. Your power now exists in absence. When you stop reaching, they start chasing. When you stop explaining, they start obsessing. When you stop showing emotion, they start guessing. And that guessing, that uncertainty, is the leash around their mind. They fear what they can't define. They respect what they can't control. They admire what they can't understand. That's the paradox of silence. The less you give, the more they feel. This is why Machiavelli said it's better to be feared than loved. But even deeper than fear is awe. And awe is born in the presence of something unknown, unreadable, untouchable. The untouchable mind doesn't compete. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't explain its path. It simply moves with quiet precision and lets the world rearrange around it. You've reached the level where control becomes nature. You don't force it. You don't fake it. You've lived it so long that stillness is who you are. They insult you, you observe. They ignore you, you stay indifferent. They try to manipulate you, you vanish. And when you return, you do so on your terms. Calm, clean, deliberate. The world feels it. They might not understand it, but they feel the difference between a man chasing peace and a man who is peace. Understand this final truth. The ultimate power isn't in dominance. It's in indifference. When you no longer need to control others, you've mastered control of self. When you no longer fear losing people, you've gained yourself completely. That's when fear turns into fascination, because now you're not a player in their world. You've become the mirror that reflects their weakness back at them. They start to second-guess everything. Their words, their tone, their motives. Because around you, the calm one, their own chaos becomes visible. You don't have to expose them. They expose themselves. And that's what terrifies them. Not your strength. Not your looks. Not your words. But your nothingness. That complete absence of reaction. That vacuum of emotional predictability. It haunts them. Because in a world addicted to validation, you've become immune. They try to pull emotion from you. They try to make you chase. They try to break your stillness. And you remain motionless. Present, but detached. Here, but untouchable. That silence, that's your kingdom. It's not weakness. It's weaponry. Every time you choose not to react, you're training your power. Every time you stay still when provoked, you're expanding your dominance. Until one day, you'll realize you no longer react because there's nothing left to react to. You've transcended it. The noise of the world no longer disturbs your inner peace. The drama of others no longer invites your participation. You watch the chaos unfold, and you smile. Because now you understand. The truly powerful don't destroy the storm. They become the calm at its center. And when people encounter you, they won't even know why they're uneasy. They'll just feel something they can't name. A mix of fear, admiration, curiosity, and respect. They'll talk about you more when you're gone than when you're there. Your silence will echo louder than their arguments. Your absence will weigh heavier than their presence. That's when you know you've built it. The mind they fear in silence. Machiavelli taught rulers how to survive among wolves. But what you've built is greater. A mind that makes the wolves question their own hunger. You've reached the final level of mental warfare. Not destruction, not domination, but invisibility. No one can touch you because you no longer play the same game. No one can own you because you no longer need anything they offer. No one can understand you because you no longer live by their emotional code. You are no longer in the crowd. You're the storm above it, silent, vast, untouchable. So as you walk into the world after this, remember, you don't need to announce your strength. It will be felt in the way you move, in the way you pause before speaking, in the way your eyes stay calm while others panic. You are the echo that stays after the noise, the stillness that bends chaos, the silence that terrifies. You don't seek respect anymore. You embody it. You don't chase control anymore. You radiate it. You've become the embodiment of Machiavelli's highest principle, not feared through cruelty, but feared through composure. They won't fear your voice. They'll fear the silence of your mind. You are the storm that doesn't move, the phantom that everyone senses but no one can touch, the man who no longer needs to be seen, because his power is everywhere. Remember these final words. Don't react, don't explain, don't chase. Watch, command, disappear. Because the ultimate strength is not in being visible, but in being unreachable. And when you reach that point, the world won't understand you, but it will never forget you.